We all are in different situations, but the goal is the same.
Greetings, all, and welcome to Cochise Convos, a podcast dedicated to sharing your stories and information about Cochise College. This is episode 16 of Cochise Convos Quarantine Edition, where we'll be listening to your stories as students and alumni and how you've managed to adjust during the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, my guest is Luis Carlos Estrada, who is a business administration and communications major at Cochise College. And today, he's going to be sharing his experience managing his studies and responsibilities with the student government during the pandemic. Luis, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
We're so excited to have you. So in general, how was the quarantine period for you? And were you quarantined with anyone or were you by yourself?
It was, obviously that it was something new because we had never experienced something like that, but it got me like kind of weird because I remember that I was a student at Cochise College in the Douglas campus, and I was living in the dorms and I was working there and I was like really involved in all the clubs and everything. But one day when I just show up to the office on Monday morning, they just told me, hey, you cannot work anymore this week. We're going to pay you this week, but we are going to let you know if you can come back. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to Hermosillo, where I'm living here in Mexico, and then I'm gonna be able to come back maybe later in the week. But no, I haven't come back since that time, and it's been more than 6 months.
Oh, it's so frustrating too, because it all just kind of came upon us at once. And I can't imagine how disappointing that's got to be.
Yes, it was, and I was like more because I'm international, and I was living by myself in Douglas, and then I moved to the dorms. But something that was hard for me was trying to adapt. Was trying to adapt to my house because I was going to continue living with my parents, with my dog, with my neighbors, and everything was like, hey, I haven't been in my house since 2017, and it was hard to adapt that part. I'm still working on it.
Aren't we all, man? Aren't we all?
I guess.
Absolutely. So, Luis, you mentioned in your bio that you are a business administration and communications major. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you interested in those two fields and how that has been affected by the pandemic?
When I was in my last year of high school, I started to look a lot of marketing stuff, and I was maybe not reading books, but reading articles or reading things in social media and watching motivational videos that were created mostly by businessmen. And I started to look how marketing is like a really important tool in business. And I was like, okay, I'm a student marketing, and the spouse of my aunt, I talked to him, and he's student marketing in Mexico, and he has a really good position in an international company, and he inspired me to go in that field. So when I moved to Coach's College and I had to decide a major, I selected business, and I really like it.
That's fantastic and wonderful to hear from you as well. It's great that you're going down that path.
Yeah, and regarding communications, I really like communication, but not because I want to study them, but because I think that you need communications every time, right? Because, for example, if you're a liar, how are you going to sell yourself to your customer? How are you going to communicate? Or, for example, in my case, in business, if I don't know how to communicate effectively, I'm not going to make any sales, right?
Exactly. Yeah, because
That's why.
having that open channel where you're communicating clearly and concisely is so important. And especially when you're working in a business, whether you're self-employed or representing a company, that's absolutely critical. And Luis, we definitely wanted to have you on the podcast today because you are our current student government SGA president. Woo woo.
Yeah.
And so can you describe for us a little bit about SGA's role at Cochise College and how you guys have adapted your operations during the pandemic?
When the pandemic started, we were like, what are we going to do now? I mean, no one is in the campus. We cannot post
Yeah.
posters. We cannot deliver the food in the grab and go boxes. We cannot do any face-to-face events. And we're like, what can I do? And I don't remember who came out with this idea, but we ended up organizing a newspaper, like a virtual newspaper. And it was called Quarantine Coaches Connections, I think. And also something else that we did, I started recording videos because I record videos just for my personal account and in my social media. And I told Jennifer, my advisor, hey, maybe I can record maybe not the same videos, but with the same topics, but in English. And that's what I did. I started recording videos about how to exercise in a quarantine period. I recorded another one about, wow, it's been a while. I don't remember, but there were like 5 or 6, I think. And we included a link of that video in the newspaper. And yeah, because we didn't upload it to our Instagram account, but it was in the newspaper. And these kind of activities, we tried to came up with virtual stuff so everyone was able to access. And this is the way that we ended up working the second half of the semester for spring. And now in fall, everything changed because we were 6 officers in the Douglas campus, even though when the pandemic started, and 6 officers in Sierra Vista. So there were 12 of us. And now they were like, okay, we're not going to have anybody in the campus this semester, or almost no one. And they decided to only have 4 officers, 2 for Douglas and 2 for Sierra Vista. And I ended up being the president this semester. And something that we also started to do was creating or trying to increase our social media web, like for example, Instagram and Facebook. So I think we are working together now, and everything is really engaged in their own role. So for example, me with the videos and organizing the meetings, the other officers with the newspaper, the other officer with the Instagram account. So other officer with the events that we are going to start having, that I'm going to let you know about it later. Yes. And yeah, I think everyone is working pretty good. Our advisors, really amazing. They're always supporting us. And I think that we have created a really good team for this fall 2020 semester.
And Luis, you mentioned a little bit how in the previous questions about how you run a podcast and you create video content for your social media platform. And can you tell us a little bit about your podcast, like its theme and how it's produced?
And in January, I want to start a podcast because I really like to listen to podcasts. And I also started. The first one was called, the podcast is in Spanish. And in the first podcast, I was talking about how we have our own wars. I don't know if that translation is the same because it's more like an expression in Spanish. But I was talking about how we have our own wars in our minds. And the podcast was about it. And the next podcast was about how to manage our time properly. And I was giving examples about how I manage my own time with my classes, with my work, with the clubs and everything. And yeah, I just continue developing more podcasts. And I have like 32 or 33 right now.
That's awesome. What have been some of the positives or the benefits of quarantine and some of the negatives?
Is there anything positive?
I mean, it depends.
Yeah. And I think that I have been like very privileged of this quarantine. If you compare, like, if I can compare myself with others, because, many people have passed away, many people have been infected by the virus. And none of my family have been infected, I think. But something positive is that, for example, I was thinking that I had no income and I had lost my job in financial aid. I didn't get fired, but I wasn't able to come back, right? And I couldn't continue working virtually. So they told me, you cannot come back now, And I called them several times. And there's no work study there. And I was like, okay, so in fall semester, I'm not going to have a work. And I was like, how am I going to make income? I'm about to transfer to university. I have to save some money. And I was like, okay, I'm going to find a way later. And then the position of a student government just opened. And I was like, so maybe I'm not going to make it in the student government because there's only going to be 4 of us instead of 12. And thank God I made it. And so I'm not paying for my classes at least because it's the scholarship, how student government works. And then I just saw an opportunity for a fellowship, and I was like, this is the position that I have to take. So I spent a lot of time working on it. They called me for an interview, and then I really prepared for that interview, like a lot of hours, because I really needed that job. Or maybe it's not a job, it's a fellowship, but at the end you get a stipend. So I needed it, and yeah, I got it. And then I was trying to apply for another job, and I applied for math tutor, and they told me like, no, you don't qualify for this. And that's true, because I'm not an engineering major, but I know some math about business. And then I applied for the writing tutor position, and I just when I sent the application, like 2 or 3 days later, the Department for Human Resources called me and, oh, do you still want the math position? I was like, yes. And I got interviewed last week, and this week they told me that I had gotten the job. And I also got I had an interview for writing tutor 2 days ago, and I'm still waiting for the response if I get it or no. But yeah, at least I have a work study position now, and I'm gonna be working virtually. So I'm like, wow, so student government, the fellowship, and now the work study position. I think that I'm very blessed now, because I was thinking that everything was going to be a mess this semester, that I was not gonna have any opportunities. And now I think that I have gotten a lot of opportunities. I was like, now I have like different jobs. But on the other hand, I have seen some of my friends here from Hermosillo, or some of them in Douglas, struggling with applying for jobs because there's no open positions. And the negative part has been that I haven't seen my friends. For example, I left Hermosillo in January the 3rd, so just after New Year. And when I came back was in March the 17th, I think, or the 16th, something like that. And the first day when I came to Hermosillo was the first day when we detected the first case here in the city. So everything was closed by the time I came to Hermosillo, and I was not able to see my friends. But I haven't called any of my friends, so it's kind of weird. We haven't gone to the park. We haven't gone to, because I like to run, so I like to go running with my friends. And yeah, this is the most difficult part, that I feel that I'm alone. And I think that you feel the same, and I know that many of my friends feel the same, because it's not the same like having having calls or having FaceTime or whatever. I mean, virtual communication.
Yeah.
It's not the same, because we need that interaction. I think it's something natural. So I think that, or more biological, right? I think we all need for each other. And I don't remember where I was reading this the other day. I think it was one of the things, or one of the accounts that I follow in Instagram. And they were saying, would you feel alone because of the pandemic if your brain reminds you that we are not designed, we were not created to live just by our own. So we need from each other. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So it makes sense for me.
Absolutely. And that social interaction is so important. And we are social creatures, like you said. And it is really hard because social interaction has changed due to the pandemic. And how we meet new people, too, has also changed. So it's definitely odd not having that face-to-face interaction. And where now more people are meeting on Zoom, like in their classes. We're meeting our classmates on Zoom and not actually meeting them in real life. So it's definitely a little strange. What advice would you give to someone who's struggling with social distancing and their academics?
We were not willing to learn with virtual classes just started. We were like, oh, we cannot learn through Zoom classes. We have to have interaction with instructors, with the classmates, and everything through Zoom. We cannot learn. So we're always like auto-sabotaging ourselves, that we all learn with different strategies. So for example, obviously that I feel that I can learn more when having like face-to-face interaction, like we used to have in Cochise. But now, I mean, I have learned many things from my classes. So just because I'm willing. But last semester, I mean the second half of last semester in the spring 2020, I thought that I didn't learn that much, because I wasn't willing to learn. So now I think that, and I have talked about it with one of my best friends, that many people have been complaining that they don't have time, that they don't have like maybe a good laptop or a good internet or whatever. So I think that we all are in different situations, but the goal is the same. The goal is getting a good grade in your class, the goal is learning. So we all have the same goals. I mean, related to our classes and to the school, but we all are in different situations. So we have to start and we have to try to do our best with what we have.
Absolutely. Luis, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you to all of you who have been watching and listening along with us. If you like what you hear, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Coach Cheese College's YouTube channel for more episodes like this. And make sure you click the little bell icon for post notifications so you get a notification every time that we post. Luis, thank you again, and have a great day, everyone.
Bye.